Okay, I have the privilege of helping get the speakers for October, and the first one I picked, give me just a second as I pass this car, is Scott Emison, is a personal friend, and I have a lot of respect for him professionally as well. He's originally from Tupelo. He's an architect with ArchitectureSouth. Graduated from Mississippi State and further studied with disaster relief recovery architecture and also urban planning. He works ArchitectureSouth is their larger project company, but they also have a division, Prairie South, who does smaller projects as well. I've asked him to share kind of what are some projects that he's completed. So hopefully we'll have pictures where we can see some of those to make it a lot more interesting. And also what's going on in the construction world in our current COVID environment. What do they see happening? I thought that would be interesting to us. Just kind of about him personally. Scott's married to Mallory Dillard, a sweet friend of mine as well. She's originally from South Tupelo. They have 3 kids, Reed, Miles, and Willow. I've had the privilege of teaching Reed as a senior at First Baptist in my class. So love them personally. They obviously attend First Baptist. He's been instrumental on the building committee for that church. We're about to do a huge renovation. He's donated a ton of time with that. It's extremely valuable. He has served on the downtown Tupelo Main Street Design Board, board of directors for Mississippi Habitat for Humanity, and also led numerous design projects, built on mission trips, domestic and internationally. And here we go, Scott Emison, take it over. Glad to have you.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Can everybody hear me?
You're welcome.
You can hear me? Good.
I can, yes.
All right.
You sound great, Scott.
I think they have allowed me the permission to share slides, so I'm gonna try to get this set up real quick. All right, can everybody see my title slide there?
Yes.
All right, what I needed to know. Thank you. All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Scott Emison, and I work for ArchitectureSouth and Prairie South Design Company here in Tupelo, Mississippi. We have an office downtown. I've been here for about 52 years. So we like to tell folks that we're one of the oldest still standing architecture firms in the city of Tupelo. Mr. Gus Staub, whose family was associated with Jesco, started the firm back in 1968, and just about every other firm in town who has principals named after them, most of them all collaborated or worked with Gus at some point. And I had the privilege of working under Gus when I got out of school and coming back into town. He and Terry Williams were still leading the firm at the time. And I had the privilege of being able to work under Mr. Gus in his later years before he finally retired and passed away. And I don't take that time for granted. In fact, most of the things I learned today and my perspective on architecture come from his brilliant sense of proportion and scale, and then his artistic ability to really be able to render that, communicate that to clients. And so I'm really fortunate to have had those years with Gus, and we were able to complete several projects. And then also Terry Williams, who I believe most of you or some of you may know. She was a past Rotarian, I believe. She's our past president and still working with us here at the firm. So some of you may know who we are. The firm was originally called Staub, Robinson, Williams. So thank you for having us today. My goal really is to talk a little bit about us. I'd love to give you an introduction of who we are, some of our past project experience, but then also some of our current projects that we have on the boards. We are really excited about this new chapter of our firm and kind of the leadership taking it forward, and some exciting local projects that I'm really interested and excited in and being able to share with you today. And then kind of the points of my talk today, I'd like to end talking about current trends that we're seeing right now in residential architecture, and then switch gears a little bit and talk about architecture and construction during coronavirus, because certainly every industry is being impacted in one way or another, some positively, some with a negative impact. And architecture and construction as it relates to maybe a recession or something else really gives some trends that we might could pay attention to. But today I just want to kind of point out a few things that are going on that we're seeing on our end already, some impact we've felt inside our office, but then also maybe an outlook on what this post-pandemic situation may look like if we could ever get out of it. So with that, I'll just kind of jump in and get started real quickly. So we have a team here in Tupelo, downtown Tupelo, of 7 people. We have 3 architects, 2 draftsmen. We just hired an interior design graduate from Mississippi State, and then we have administrative team. And our services are kind of really broad. So we'll do anything from master planning on a project to if you call me up and say, hey, we need to kind of get this sketch, this idea out, sketched on paper, we'd love to help with that portion of it. But then obviously we serve all the way through full services, including construction administration, being on site, watching the building come up. Like I said, with a lot of our residential work, we do most of that under an hourly or maybe by square foot fee. And so it's kind of odd that you have a dual platform firm. So ArchitectureSouth, being a 52-year-old firm, has a long-standing legacy and tradition of projects that are kind of spread all across the state and multiple states. And then Prairie South Design is really kind of a dream. It's been a hobby that we've had for about 10 years that Linda Smith here, who's my partner in that, we share and kind of rebranded about a year ago to kind of really give a full service offering for residential work, because we just felt like there was a need for maybe some custom design or some drafting and design work in the residential sector here in Tupelo. The firm, obviously, in 52 years has garnered a lot of awards, but over the last 5 to 10 years, in my experience and with my help, we've been able to see some awards come back to the firm, and our team is really proud of some of the things that we've accomplished. And really started out, we have been for the last 12 years the project architects for Clarksdale Municipal School District, handling just about everything they had going. In fact, we have a ton of work in the Delta and continue to do that. But this was a project that Gus and I worked on right before his retirement, which was a performing arts center that was at a middle school, really underprivileged area, economic hard times really kind of hit the school. They didn't really have anything going. They decided to completely rebrand almost as a charter magnet school that specialized in the arts. We were able to build a performing arts center and then completely redo their existing middle school. Other projects that have kind of garnered awards that are notable around the area, the Northeast Mississippi Community College Student Services Building that is terminates on the boulevard. If you've ever been on their campus, or maybe if you were a student there, you remember the boulevard going right through campus. Well, this was kind of a transformative project, but I'll talk about it again in just one second. Regional Workforce Training Center, which was a large project down at Southwest Mississippi Community College, was another really good project that was kind of a transformative building that we brought on campus and was able to kind of see the vision of the administrative deans at that time. Kind of had this idea that their community college really didn't have an opportunity to reach the regional workforce, and that they needed some sort of center where all these different organizations, nonprofits, public, private, all of the above, could come together and kind of utilize and have this flexible space to do that. ArchitectureSouth has worked for a lot of community colleges, universities across the state. Education has been a real big sector that our firm has been active in over the last probably 20, 30 years. But I will mention that we do a lot of, our deliverables are kind of across the board. So the way we might approach a project might be a sketch like what you see in the top left corner here, all the way to full computer renderings. That bottom image is actually a project I was involved with, which was the Wellspring Center for Ideas, which was kind of was a project idea that the Pool Alliance had when Toyota came to town and the endowment was formed. This project has never been built, but it was a lot of fun to kind of think through the way some of these technical and career schools and specialties could find their way into a community-oriented school that would serve all 5 school districts. And obviously that kind of the new revelation of this is the Career and Technical Education Center that is going up for Lee County Schools right now, which we're proud of. Not a project of ours, but we're still proud of it just from the impact that it's going to have on the community. So let me run through some project experience. I'm going to go through this quickly, and then at the end, I'll answer any questions that you may have. So a lot of you may recognize this project. It's an older one, but I wanted to include it just to show some project experience. But I think this was a very important project in Fair Park and kind of anchored the Fair Park district. You can see out that window when this construction photo was taking place that there was not a lot present in Fair Park, and Fair Park has grown and thanks to TRA and others in the city leadership, it continues to grow and is really a hot spot right now for architecture and construction. We've been really fortunate over the last 4 years to be able to help Mississippi State renovate some of their older dorms on campus. And so these are really quick projects that we have to come in, we have to bid it before the summer, and then we're given about a 10-week period to come in and renovate the entire dormitory. So it's a high stress, quick timeline, quick turnaround project. We've been fortunate over the last 4 years to be given new dorm projects every summer. This is a project at Delta State University. We've had 2 multi-year projects that have gone on at Delta State. One was a science lab project that was about 4 different phases that took over 10 years to complete. This is Ziegel Hall. So we've had a long-standing relationship with Delta State and continue to do so today. This is that project that I was talking about at Northeast Mississippi Community College. We're real proud of this. This project terminated the boulevard. I have grandparents that live in Boonville, and I think they cussed me for a long time because they kept saying I was eliminating their way to be able to cut through campus and get back to their house from Walmart. But this project really kind of gave a center of campus to Northeast, created almost a quad. You can kind of see the fountain and the grass area where it gave more of a community sense to the community college, and allowed them to kind of have a social space in the center of that boulevard. And all we did was reroute the boulevard to go around. This project was a collaboration with Bob Mercier, who's a landscape architect from Tupelo. The building at the end of the terminus here at the very end right there, that's the administrative on the 2nd floor and social student services on the bottom floor. This was a project for Clarksdale Municipal School District. Like I said, we've worked for them for probably the last 10 years. We've done a baseball field. This was the football field. We've done different administrative buildings, different education buildings, but this one is actually under construction and finishing up right now, which is a new track and a new football stadium for them. And then I want to kind of shift gears and start talking a little bit about some of the project experience through Prairie South, which, like I said, has been sort of a 10-year dream to be able to make this kind of become reality. And it's still kind of in the grassroots early stages of Prairie South, but I want to show some project experience on the residential side. So this is a home out in West Tupelo, out off Barnes Cross and Luke, which is a very custom home. The homeowner came to us and basically said, we've been going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming for the last 6 or 7 winters, and we just love the architecture out there. We'd love to have a lodge feel home to our new home. This entry was something that we kind of dreamed up, and the rest of the plan kind of worked off of that. And so it's a real beautiful home, real low-lying and kind of lodge feeling. This is the rear of the home with a screened-in porch, lots of stone, lots of natural materials. This is the interior of the home, which the homeowner kindly refers to as kind of her cathedral. She loves the kind of church feel of the 2-story proportion of the main space, and they use it and entertain out of it. The next 4 projects, starting with this one I'm going to show you, actually 3 projects are in Highland Circle in downtown Tupelo, historic neighborhood. So this was just a little small cottage that started out, had 6.5, almost 7-foot ceilings, I believe, upstairs when we started it. It was kind of a retrofit. We ended up basically ripping the entire roof off this house and putting back and doing the full renovation of the downstairs, which ended up opening up all of its kitchen, living, and dining. So all of this space right here, this is all added where we were able to get head heights of bedrooms upstairs to be able to work with the young family's needs and goals for that project. This is the interior of that, where we were able to open up that main, which was a bunch of small rooms. We were able to open that up, get new kitchen, new dining, new living room space. Really, the interior of the space was in great shape. Those hardwood floors were underneath some old laminate floors that had been put down in the 80s. And really, it was just a renovation of the finishes on the inside. This is the kitchen in its current configuration. Around the circle, this is another English Tudor style house that we were fortunate to be able to do a 2-story addition and this small screened-in porch off the back to give them some more living space. So much like older historic homes, most of them have smaller rooms. This house really didn't have a great living space, and then they needed a new master bedroom space, and this screened-in porch was kind of an add-on to the project to give them a little bit of private space off their master. This is just an interior shot of one of their libraries off the master bedroom. This is that screened-in porch off the back. kind of, obviously we were wanting to work within the character of the original Tudor style house. And here's that exterior of that screened-in porch. This is another house, kind of a stately manor, traditional house that's around the corner off Oak Grove Road in the rear of Highland Circle. Exterior-wise, really was just kind of a renovation, restoration of what was there, but we did an addition and did a full renovation of the interior. This is an exterior courtyard that's on the rear of the house. This is the new kitchen renovation of this house. These are some interior shots of what the house looks like today. This is a sitting sunroom that's on the corner of the house. And then this project, not on Highland Circle, this project's actually in Belledere here in town. Great project for a good friend of mine, and they were looking for some entertainment space, but also flexibility. So they had sort of this existing cottage that you see to the right over here, which is a great house, kind of at the top of a hill. And all these projects came about right about the time the tornado came through, and they were kind of re-envisioning what in the world does our yard look like now? How do we handle this? And they kind of said, well, we've always been parking in a basement downstairs. We'd love to have something upstairs that we could use not only as a garage and get our cars out of the weather, but when we want to, we'd love to be able to entertain out of it. And so what we did was the left side over here, you can see this is an outdoor kitchen that's connected to a back porch. And then the interior of the garage we have on the back side of it have a big roll-up see-through garage door that we were able to open up the porch to the outside. So their daughter got married about 8 months ago, and they had about 60 people on this back porch and in the space for a wedding reception, or not a wedding reception, but for a bridal reception one night. Outdoor kitchen, this is the opposite side of the outdoor kitchen looking back towards the porch in the backyard. This is actually a project, so these are some current projects that we are currently working on. This is a project that is finishing up construction right now. This project's out off Mount Vernon, which is a super custom, kind of a big estate home that we have done. But cool thing about this project, you wouldn't really recognize it from right here, but if you go under that porte-cochere, the room in the back has a half-court basketball court that actually is kind of halfway below ground, halfway above ground. Not too many of those in Tupelo, so that's a fun thing. My kids love these niches where they're actually going to have soccer goals set up on each end of the gymnasium. My kids think that's the coolest thing in the world. This is the rear of that home. Like I said, this was kind of mid. We're probably, this is, I think, on my second inspection after construction was complete, so they're still completing a few things and obviously working on landscaping. These are pictures of the interior of the home, so a big steel door, some very unique features to this home, and high-end custom home. This is a project that we've been working on. This is for a healthcare organization, rural healthcare organization. They are out of Ashland, Mississippi, but they have clinics kind of all over Northwest Mississippi, stretching from Corinth to Memphis, all the way down to probably Oxford. And they needed a regional training center, which they wanted to locate in Ripley, Mississippi. They had very traditional taste, but we were able to kind of work this new training center in next to one of their clinics. It's going to be where they have about 95 employees. This space would probably hold about 200 people in a large training conference type room, and really is going to end up being sort of a showpiece to that. I want to kind of show something real quick. I'm going to get out of what I'm doing. Maybe you can see this. This is a construction camera that we have set up on site right now. I hope you can see that. But we're going to be talking in just a second about the way things are changing and the way you monitor and you put out projects and your process is. This is one way for me to not have to be on site. This is one way for us to monitor the way construction progress is going, but this is a camera that's actually set up on the clinic building right next door to it, so you can see that project that we were just discussing actually coming up out of construction. I'll keep going real quick. This is a project down at Mississippi State, which is working out at Raspet Flight Lab. It's a project we're working on right now. It's some interiors work where we're adding this interior stair and completely redoing all their offices on bottom and top floors. So these are interior renderings of what that space will look like. They're wanting to do a big LED wall. This is another interior image of the way we're going to rework their and modernize their offices. You can see this. This is a project inside Tupelo. This is it's called the Legacy Building, but it's going to be in downtown Fair Park across from CDF. It's currently looking for tenants. And so bottom floor would be healthcare oriented type tenants, or financial sector type tenants is what they've got right now. The upper 2 floors would be residential, and more of like an executive style units. So you see balconies on the ends, and then it would basically encroach the street. This courtyard would actually be between our building and what is the CDF parking lot now on the west side. These are some other interior images. We've worked with Blair House. Our interior designer has worked with Blair House Interiors here in town to sort of work on some of the interiors of the spaces, and they're continuing to refine those right now. This is another really exciting project that we are fortunate to be a part of and are excited about what's going to happen here. But the city is currently sort of re-envisioning what is going on out at Bel Air Golf Course. The city owns that property, in case you didn't know. But this project, which is about to come out for bid probably in the next month, is actually a re-envisioning of actually a brand new pro shop for the golf course. They're redoing the entire golf course. And then the top building is going to be a community center that kind of anchors that property with a big, great lawn between the two. So it's an exciting project for Tupelo. And like I said, we feel so blessed to be a part of it right now. And then the last project I want to share for current projects that we have on the boards is a large dormitory project. So these 2 dorms in the background currently exist on the MSMS campus down at Mississippi University for Women campus in Columbus. And we've been charged with renovating the 90,000 square foot of dorms. So if you have a student that goes to MSMS, they would stay in one of these 2 dorms. And we have been charged with sort of creating a new face for that and a new connector, as well as renovating those older dorms that are there. So this is a really large project that'll probably be on our boards and under construction for the next 3 or 4 years. All right, I want to shift gears just real quickly and kind of talk about current trends in residential architecture, and we'll kind of finish talking about the COVID coronavirus impacts on our industry. I just thought this might be fun to add in here. So we've all kind of seen current trends, and we'll always ask ourselves, is this trendy, is this not trendy? But because we get to do a lot of custom work, we get to hear what a lot of people want. What do they want in their custom home if they have the opportunity to design it from scratch? We're still seeing a lot of like brick archways and things on the interiors. We're seeing still a lot of white painted brick and details like that. But things are, what we're seeing is there's a trend towards sort of this European flair. So you can kind of see it on this gable here where the edges step out. You can see it with a lot of courtyards. There's a lot of people asking us for cottage type scale projects. You're still seeing, a high emphasis on detail. So bronze and brass and gold. So maybe if you held on to some of your gold finishes or your brass finishes from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that maybe they're coming back into style right now. I don't know, but it seems like we're headed back that way. We're also seeing a lot of more natural materials. So a big use of stone in a lot of projects, a big use of reclaimed lumber and timber type structures. We're seeing a ton of stuff like that. We're also seeing interesting roof lines kind of take shape. So we've had a lot of people lately ask us about, vaulted ceilings and interesting roof lines that would not be typical on a typical house. So that's kind of what we're seeing. We're still seeing folks ask for, super light and airy. I think one of the main colors over the last 2 years has actually been a version of a white that people are painting. And then still the trend towards dark windows and big windows to let a lot of that light in that we're seeing. All right, let me talk real quickly sort of about lumber prices and what's going on in the U.S. and kind of what we're seeing. Everybody right now, I think the Journal put out something a couple weeks ago about, lumber prices being increased. And we have this really odd phenomenon where the real estate market's doing really, really well right now. So they say it's a seller's and a buyer's market. So the problem I see is that there's just not enough inventory. I think most real estate agents would probably tell you that. And what's happening is I think there's a lot of people going to the market looking for a house or trying to build and realizing that they could buy an existing house for much cheaper, which is what's happening in the market. Prior to COVID, we had a really interesting situation in the market where everything was prime. You had really low interest rates, so people could borrow, refinance, put money back into their house or build a new house with really low rates. And so people were trying to get more house for the same money. And it was working really well until some of the coronavirus impact started catching up with that. The most recent thing that we're seeing is that the lumber and steel industry is really being affected. So you've got the average cost of a residential home in the U.S. has increased by that price of $16,148 since April 17th. And I would say for Mississippi, it's actually higher than that. We're seeing anywhere from about a 10 to 25% increase in cost estimates that we see come back on some of our residential work. And obviously our commercial work is taking the same hit, even though it uses less lumber and probably more steel. Had a guy 2 days ago tell me, man, we quoted this house in March. Here we are, went back with the same drawings, and here we are in September, and we just got a price back. And I think it was about $128,000 higher than it had originally been quoted in March. Now, there were some things added, but still, a good portion of that was framing lumber and framing labor. Just to give you an idea, a sheet of OSB that you could have bought probably in March for $9 to $10 a sheet would now cost you, if you went to Home Depot, if you went to Tupelo Lumber, if you went to specialty sales, any of the above, it's going to cost you $21 to $24 a sheet. A 9-foot stud probably costs $5 to $6 March or April. Now we're starting to see prices $9 to $11. So you can imagine over an entire framing package how that would really affect the cost of a house. So how will architecture firms survive? And I just wanted to drop this in here because these are things obviously we're really paying close attention to. Now we at ArchitectureSouth have been really blessed. We have not had to let anybody go. We have maintained projects through all of this. We obviously had to work and adapt to kind of a new working method and a new way to do. We have engineering firms that work with us that are having trouble staffing and having trouble putting projects back out. But some sectors are going to see a recession. And what we're seeing right now is, and what we think is that some will rise. So, I think diverse portfolios will reign here. So where a firm may have specialized in nothing but maybe hospitality or retail or entertainment, they're probably going to see a decline in some of their projects that are coming across, or maybe a hesitation to push a project forward. But what we're also seeing is that healthcare, manufacturing, specifically like distribution and warehousing for folks like Amazon and some of these bigger companies, are booming, and doesn't look like there's going to be an end to any of that. I think for us, pre-plan for a recession, learning to operate differently with reduced staff, reduced workflow, and reduced cash flow are going to set firms up for success and continued project fulfillment. That's our biggest worry, is that we can't produce a project and put it out as quickly as we once could. And then on the back side of that, in the construction side, you're going to be hit with delays and time lapse for materials that you can't get, or materials cost so much now that we need to wait and then put that into the project later. But for us, it's really just been, let's adapt to survive. So whether this hits a recession or not, whether any of this is just related to the pandemic, whether some of it's political, whatever that may be, it depends on who you talk to, whether they think it's going to end in November, whether they think we'll see sort of a change in the tides come January, or whether we're headed back into a recession like we saw in 2007, 2008. It just depends on who you talk to. We want to kind of err on the side of, let's just be adaptable and figure out a new way to work. So there's new ways to deliver a project. There's new ways to work within our own office. There's new ways to, we need to expect different models. I think you're going to see the old delivery method of, we're going to design a project, then we're going to bid a project, and then we're going to build a project. I think you're going to see that kind of change course. I think you're going to see more people collaborating and doing design build work where the designer and the contractor are working together. I think you're going to see more projects where there's construction management going on, where there's somebody having oversight who's overseeing the entire schedule and the budget and the drawings, and making sure things continue to pace accordingly. And we just think all those things are going to be set up. We want to adapt really so that we can have opportunities to offset all of those, maybe those negative impacts where you would have slowed production or workers who had to work remotely or delayed constructibility. And then lastly, I just wanted to kind of end with 8 ways coronavirus will impact the construction industry. I think there are some positive take-ons from this. The traditional construction site, whether it be commercial or residential, has kind of it's been a messy place. Some folks keep a cleaner job site. Some folks keep their workers in check. Some folks have registered workers. Some folks don't. Some folks have workman's comp in place. OSHA guidelines, all those things are taken into account. I don't think you can ignore those anymore. I think job sites are going to continue to be cleaner and safer. I think distancing will continue to be the norm. I think there's going to be, even on the construction site, where I need to, there's groups of people working together right now on that site in Ripley. We have about 3 different industry trades that are in there trying to put their part of the project together. But I think innovative methods are going to increase. So there's different ways of doing that. So if it can be done off-site, maybe it will be done off-site. One new thing that I think everybody's going to have to get used to is that projects are going to take longer to complete, not just from the design side, but from a construction standpoint. We have longer lead times. We have, we have supply chain issues. We have all sorts of things that are going on that are going to impact that schedule. And we're just going to have to be patient from that, where, you look at the construction industry in 2019, 30% of our materials in 2019 were imported from China to the United States. Is that going to continue to be able to happen, or is that going to continue to decline, and let's figure out a way to make American-made products? We all get really upset when our Amazon package isn't delivered, prime one day. I think we're going to have to, in the construction industry, realize that it may take longer, and there's going to be longer lead time items that we've never really had to deal with in the past. Telework will be more common. I think remote workers and things on both construction and architecture side will continue to take place. Things like that, the video of the construction camera I just showed you. I was talking to an inspector in a city a few days ago about, he's been doing inspections by FaceTime and 360-degree photographs that have been submitted to him, and they're kind of looking at a new norm of a way to facilitate that across all their projects. Some of these others, union influence in construction will grow. We don't really see a whole lot of that in Mississippi, but I think in other parts of the country, they're starting to see influence of larger groups and the union take place and kind of make sure these standards are in tote. Demand for project types. So I talked a little bit about it. You're probably going to see less hospitality, retail, and entertainment projects popping up, and you're going to start to see more healthcare oriented, manufacturing, like I said, from a distribution standpoint, probably so. You're probably going to see a lot more of that happening. And then supply chains are going to recalibrate, whether that's determining, how do we get the means and the methods, how do we get it there, where's it coming from, what is it, who is their supply coming to. But I think, that's an industry that's probably completely right now turned on its head and trying to figure out how they continue to operate. They're doing a really good job of it from what we see on the construction standpoint. But there are items and things you can't get. There are items and things that have a longer lead time, and everything's costing more at this point anyway. Modular and prefab methods will rise again. So much like the 1980s when my grandfather got involved in prefab housing, I think you're going to start to see, so any distribution center that's put up, it's already being put up with prefab concrete panels. I think you're going to see that in housing and other industries that can adapt. I see modular and prefab. So if we can do it quicker that way than trying to do something site built, it makes a whole lot of sense. So we've gone through past projects and then current projects and then talked a little bit about the industry, and I would welcome any questions that you may have.
Scott, this is Jeffrey Mitchell. I'm glad you are with us today, and I thank you for that. In the cities that are big and they've got these high-rise office buildings and they've sent employees home, and I don't remember where it was, but it was a big building somewhere, and they told them to stay for another year at home. What do you think is going to happen to some of these, and the employer likes that, even though they're stuck with so many dollars a square foot. But what trend do you think is going to happen there? And another trend was that some of these empty malls are making themselves available for distribution centers. So that's the end of my 2 questions.
Yeah, I'll quickly answer those. I think it may be a trend towards what is going to be the new norm. I don't think folks are going to be, other than these distribution guys and some of these others, the ideas of somebody taking up 6 floors and 200,000 square feet to put all of their employees on a floor. I think all of that's being reevaluated. Now, certainly there are industries that I think are going to continue to need that space. But I even there's a Mississippi architect I was talking to the other day, and we were discussing, different business plans and kind of the way things have been impacted. And his cash flow and my cash flow, and we were talking back and forth. And he was saying, "Man, I'm about 2 weeks away from turning everybody out. We're going to actually not renew our lease on our current building, and he's going to have 21 people working remotely as of probably next month's payroll." That's just unheard of, especially in Mississippi. But he's like, I've got folks already working from all over. I've got a couple folks that we consult with that are in other cities. I just think it's going to be a trend of the tide. Everybody's got to kind of keep an eye on that a ton of space. Nobody wants to have all that under lease when you really can't control, especially when you're shut down in periods of time, and something like this might pop up and really affect your bottom line. Your second question, remind me what that was.
Well, it was an example of reusing space. Like some of these companies own multiple malls, and depending on where they are in the population around them, they're the Amazons and Walmarts are interested in putting distribution centers inside those malls. Repurposing.
So malls have been I hate to say it, but malls have been almost a dying breed, and they're having to basically reinvent themselves every year anyway to keep retailers because of the impact of online shopping. I mean, obviously that's had a major influence on what they're doing. I think malls are doing just what just about everybody else who owns a ton of commercial real estate is doing right now, which is evaluating their square footage and figuring out what tenant may fit it. It may not be the same tenant that we have had in it the last 20, 30 years. And malls, unfortunately, have a ton of square footage sitting on the ground that all over the U.S., what we see, I did a good bit of retail site selection over a course of about the last 3 or 4 years up until about 2 years ago. And what we saw was that mall tenants, these big malls that own multiple malls, are trying to figure out how do we fill these big box stores that have gone out, and they're scraping for anything they can find. Any other questions?
All right, is that it? Any more questions? All right, well, thank you very much. Great presentation. I think it's unfortunately very relevant to hear about the reallocation of space. I think we're seeing across corporate America, and I think it's the new reality we are in. A lot of companies are pushing people back. Thank you very much. We enjoyed the program.